Hello guys, welcome to all of you on my YouTube channel Tari's Vision. Today we are going to talk about St. Coleridge and next we are going to talk about John Keats. And both these authors are very important, not only for the exam purpose but for the life purpose also. St. Coleridge, the word ST stands for Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And if we compare Samuel Taylor Coleridge to William Wordsworth, then we can say that William Wordsworth was for natural world, but St. Coleridge was for the supernatural world. And we see Wordsworth's fame rests on as a poet, but St. Coleridge's fame rests on his criticism, because with his famous book Biographia Literaria that was published in 1817, St. Coleridge tried his hand on many critical things of English literature. First of all, he defended his supernatural depiction in his literary works. For example, if we talk about the rhyme of Ancient Mariner, it may be summed up as his best work, the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and it is a ballad. In this famous ballad, St. Coleridge talks about a person, there's a mariner who wants to tell his story to people, and he is standing on the gate of a party. Inside of the gate, a party is going on, and he wants to tell that what actually happened with him in sea, but there's nobody who is listening him. Finally, he gets a person who started listening his story, and the mariner tells him about his sin. And what kind of sin it was? That he killed a bird whose name was albatross. Remember the word albatross, A-L-B-A-T-R-O, A-L-B-A-T-R-O-S-S, albatross. And this very word was sent by God, by supernatural being, to protect and show them the right path of their journey. But he killed that bird, and finally, as a symbol of sin, this bird was hanged in his neck. And finally, somehow he manages to come out from the sea. Here he talked about supernatural beings. He tells that his ship was carried by dead bodies. Whether they were the angels or the ghosts, it doesn't matter, or it is not clear, we can say. So St. Coleridge talked about supernatural beings, and that's why we see that in his works he depicts supernatural elements. And due to this book, due to this poem, the famous collection of poems, lyrical ballads, that was published in 1798 was rejected by the people in Romantic age. They did not consider that it is valuable or worth to read. So that's why Wordsworth changed something in his next edition and put this poem on 23rd number from first. St. Coleridge was brilliant in his studies. He went many places, and ultimate thing about his planning of life was that he wanted to establish a pantocracy. Remember the word pantocracy, P-A-N-T-I-S-O, pantocracy. And where? On the banks of river Susquehanna. And who was another author who was with him? It was Robert Southey. And they married with two girls, and perhaps they were sisters also, but their marriage also failed. And this project was also failed. And ultimately, he met William Wordsworth in 1795 and started working with him. In 1797, he became very close to William Wordsworth, and together with their joint efforts, they created lyrical ballads, a famous collection of poems to which Romantic age begins. So let's come and talk about S.T. Coleridge. Yeah, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, 1772 to 1834. Being brilliant in his studies and poem writing, he won a college medal for a poem attacking the slave trade. Means which was the poem for which he won a college medal was a poem. It was a poem that was written for the slave trade. And remember that it was a time also when Napoleon Bonaparte started trading of slaves, and he won the medal for criticizing this phenomena. He criticized the slave trading and he won the medal, and it was written in Greek. He began experimenting with alcohol, opium and sex in his adolescence. यानी कि क्या हुआ, इतने ही एज में, in a very small age, he was addicted to some, very bad things of his life, and that were alcohol, opium and sex. Means alcohol and opium. Even he wrote his some poems in the hangover of opium. His famous poem Kubla Khan, he was writing and he has taken the booze of opium. But someone, according to S.T. Coleridge, the person from Purlock, knocked on the door, and the very idea of writing poem was lost, and this poem could never be completed after it. So see here, dropping out of college in 1794, he joined poet Robert Southey, with whom he planned a utopian pantsocracy. यानी रॉबर्ट सदी से मिलने के बाद इन्होंने प्लानिंग की एक यूटोपियन. What is meaning of a utopia? It is a place where everything is perfect place, and nothing bad is here. So utopian pantsocracy to be established on the bank of the Susquehanna. And what were the other characteristics of this pantsocracy? Here they even did farming. They did other work, and work was limited only 2 hours per day. Remember the thing, 2 hours per day, यानी 2 घंटे तक काम करना है, पूरे दिन बाकी आपको एंजॉय करना है. और यही नहीं, इसके अलावा इनका क्या पर्पस था कि यहां पर शादी भी करेंगे. एंड इवन दे डिड. रॉबर्ट सदी, एस.टी. कॉलरिज, and one more, who? Wordsworth. Together all these 3 poets are called lake poets, because Robert Southey was a mutual friend of William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge, and their marriage project was failed. S.T. Coleridge and Robert Southey's project of marriage failed here, and they left the place. They did not have money. They were suffering from debts. The mounting debts left them, various kind of dilemma where they had to leave this project. Even they did not have the money to pay for their travel allowances. And here, see, they made a condition that they both marry in their utopian living. That they will marry in their utopian living. And they did even. Their utopian project failed, and the both were trapped in an incompatible marriage. In 1797, he became close friends with William Wordsworth. And his sister Dorothy. We have talked about Dorothy in my previous class. Dorothy, the girl who loved nature, the girl with woman compassion and sympathy, helped Wordsworth to become Wordsworth. Means whatever Wordsworth is today, somewhere the reason behind his being Wordsworth is Dorothy, his sister. And after the death of his mother, his sister and Wordsworth lived apart. Even 9 years they were not together. But finally, Dorothy came and they started living together and they worked on this project of lyrical ballads. So here, the lyrical ballad is a collaborative work of Wordsworth and Coleridge, and the latter wrote is the most famous ballad, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Was it ballad? Ballad. What is ballad? Ballad, it comes from the French word ballad or ballady. Remember, ballad and ballady. It is a French word which means word, story, poem. यानी ballad कहां पर? इस भाषा के शब्द से आता है फ्रेंच के, जिसका मतलब क्या होता है? वर्ड, स्टोरी और पोयम. This is kind of poem that has been transmitted orally from one generation to another, and it often tells a story. Remember the word? It has been transmitted orally and often tells a story. यानी कि इसका ट्रांसमिशन ओरली हुआ है, मौखिक रूप से. बिरहा का रूप जैसे हमारे यहां होता है, आल्हा और रुदल की कहानी, उसी तरीके से यहां पर भी होता है कि इसका ओरल ट्रांसमिशन हुआ है एक जनरेशन से दूसरी जनरेशन तक. When I will teach you the literary terms, then I will tell you about ballad and other famous literary terms too. So here I have just given you a hint that what actually ballad is. Ballad is a poem where we get a story. Usually it has third person narrative, we can say. So here, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, for it, due to his continuous addiction to opium, Coleridge was constantly in a state of depression. यानी कि अपने लगातार अफीम के एडिक्शन के कारण ये क्या रहे? एक तनाव में रहे. He separated from Wordsworth in 1810. 1810 में वर्ड्सवर्थ से ये अलग हो गए. Despite his opium addiction, अपने अफीम के एडिक्शन के कारण, Coleridge proved to be the most intelligent of the English romantics. यानी अब क्या हुए? ये इंग्लिश रोमांटिक्स जो थे उसमें सबसे ज्यादा इंटेलिजेंट साबित हुए. With the publication of Biographia, Literaria in 1817. So you get it? Biographia, Literaria is a critical work where we have given many theories. First of all, he has talked about the willing suspension of disbelief. क्या होता है मैं भी आपको बताऊंगा. फैंसी एंड इमेजिनेशन के बारे में इन्होंने बातें की, और इन्होंने कई सारी चीजें जैसे कि टेबला रसा, द थियरी ऑफ जॉन लॉक. ही हैज क्रिटिसाइज्ड दिस थियरी एंड कह सकते हैं आपकी वो खारिज किया उन्होंने इस थियरी को. यहां पर आगे बढ़ते हैं. S.T. Coleridge, there are some facts regarding S.T. Coleridge. The 13th child of Reverend John Coleridge, means he was the 13th child of John Coleridge, was a precocious child who had read the Bible and Arabian Nights. So here he had read many such poems. The Bible and Arabian Nights, means he has read two most famous book also. Bible itself has many kind of stories they are, and Arabian Nights 1001 story. 1001 stories. The word 1001, what it is? It is a kind of palindrome. Palindrome means this is same from both the sides. 1001 इधर से पढ़ेंगे, इधर से पढ़ेंगे, तब भी वो 1001 होता है. There is a word in India, Malayalam. Malayalam is a language. तो मलयालम भी क्या है? एक पैलिंड्रोम है. तो दोनों साइड से वो एक होता है. तो अरेबियन नाइट्स को ये पढ़ चुके थे. द फेमस स्टोरी ऑफ प्रिंस शहरयार and his wife Saharjade. What is the story? Prince Shahryar was cheated by his first wife. She cheats him, and Prince Shahryar has an idea in his mind that women only cheat and nothing else they do. He take an oath, he take an vow that he will marry a girl each night and will kill her in the morning. यानी वो एक लड़की से शादी करेगा रोज रात में और सुबह उसको मार देगा. Many days, many months were passed, and even the number of the girls in the kingdom was decreased. The prime minister of the kingdom was very worried. He had no idea that what he should do to cope up with this problem. How could he stop Prince from killing the girls? His daughter came in front, Sahajade, and told his father that, "Father, don't worry. Kindly allow me to marry Shahryar, and I will stop him doing so." The prime minister was very worried, but he doesn't have any other option. So he allowed to marry Shahryar to Sahajade, and they both were married. So what happened in the first night? Sahajade started telling him a story. Sahajade started telling Prince Shahryar a story, and deliberately she didn't brought the story on a conclusion till morning. And Prince Shahryar procrastinated the death of Sahajade till next night. In next night, Sahajade, what she did? She ended the story, one story, but started one another very cleverly, and did not tell about the end of it on the second morning. यानी कि दूसरे दिन भी क्या किया, एक कहानी को शुरू कर दिया और जानबूझ करके सुबह तक उसका एंड नहीं बताया, ताकि क्या हो, प्रिंस शहरयार उसको मारे ना, एक बना रहे उसके अंदर. समझ रहे हैं क्या? इंथुजियाज्म कह सकते हैं, क्या आप कैसे इंटरेस्ट कि क्या होगा अब इस कहानी का एंड. इन दिस वे शी स्पेंट 1001 नाइट. She told many stories to Prince Shahryar during this span of time. Ali Baba and 40 Chor, Aladdin ka Chirag. These are the famous stories of Arabian Nights, Alif Laila. There's a movie also has been adapted in Hollywood cinema. Will Smith has acted in it, Arab Ki Ye Raat. And finally, Prince Shahryar fell in love with Sahajade, and the idea that came in his mind was that women not always cheat, or we can say don't cheat. They also have affection towards men, and they also have sympathy towards men. And Prince Shahryar and Sahajade loved each other till the end of their life. So Coleridge had read about all these things in a very short span of time. He could read all these things, and even when he entered in Cambridge, so critics tell that he had even much knowledge than to a professor in the university. So see here, and could remember an astonishing amount from both books, means not even read. He even remembered the stories of these books too. At 10, जब वो 10 साल के हुए, he was sent to the charity school of Christ Hospital. And whom he met here? He met here Charles Lamb. Who was Charles Lamb? The Prince of English essayists, and who has written personal essays. He has put personal sentiments in his essays, Christ Hospital, and in his essay Christ Hospital, Charles Lamb has told about his friendship with the S.C. Coleridge. So he see here London, where he met Charles Lamb. Lamb recounts this in his essay Christ Hospital. So now next, at the age of 19, he entered in Cambridge. 19 साल की उम्र में कैम्ब्रिज में गए यूनिवर्सिटी में, but left in 1794. 1794 में इसे छोड़ दिया without taking the degree due to his debts. इतने ज्यादा डेप्थ थे कि डिग्री ही नहीं लिया. एक बार ये छोड़ करके कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी को भाग करके जाते हैं. But finally he brought back to that place. but Coleridge ultimately ran away from this place without taking his degree. After he visited many places in world too, he went France, other places, and he kept on reading, he kept on studying about the literature and other things. Here, the Pantocracy on the banks of the Susquehanna was be an ideal community in which the citizens combined farming and literature. Means you will have to do farming and you will have to read and write literature too. Yes, what's a good kind of combination, you know. Here what it is, you have to make farming, धान उगाइए, फसलें उगाइए, और इसके अलावा literature means you have the basic material for writing literature. You can become Wordsworth there, you can become John Keats, you can become Shelley there, because now you are seeing everything around you. You are seeing the cascades, you are seeing the waterfalls, you are seeing the rivers, and you are seeing the fields where every kind of harvest is grown. So here, and literature and work was to be limited 2 hours each day. Means क्या है, 2 घंटे तक काम करता है बस, आपको समझ आए हैं, 2 घंटे तक काम करेंगे. और विच सदी के साथ में he wrote a poem, The Fall of Robespierre. इसको यहां पर उन्होंने लिखा, but their utopian project was failed. Remember this. Poetic works, first of all, lyrical ballads and the famous. So it is co-work with Wordsworth, I have told you already. And here he wrote his famous poem, The Rime of Ancient Mariner. His another poem, Christabel, 1797, appeared in The Rime of Ancient Mariner, 1798. I will teach you this poem separately in another class. Whenever I will teach you the text, this poem will be on my ultimate priority, that I will teach you, and I will. Now Kubla Khan, another poem, Kubla Khan, composed in 1797, do not publish until 1816, because this poem was not complete. It was unfinished, and on the saying of Byron and another person, ultimately S.T. Coleridge made this poem publish. And he has told the reason. See the reason? What it is? When Lord Byron, all people, persuaded Coleridge to publish it. यानी Lord Byron ने जब कहा किसको, S.T. Coleridge को, कि आप इस पोयम को क्या करिए, पब्लिश करिए, तब उन्होंने किया. The story about the idea for the poem coming to Coleridge in a dream while he was under the influence of opium is true. यानी कि इसको लिखने का आइडिया कॉलरिज के माइंड में कब आया, जब वो सपने में थे और उन्होंने ओपियम, अफीम ले रखी हुई थी. Your mind, when you are sleeping or when you are going to sleep, it is on hibernation mode. And when it is on hibernation mode, then many ideas come to your mind. You observe all these ideas in your mind. ग्रहण करते हैं आप सब कुछ चीजें. Even the name of this channel, Tiresias Vision, I got this idea when I was going to sleep. I was wondering that what must be the name of my channel to which I am going to teach. And I was asking the questions from in my mind to Lord, you can say, or supernatural beings, whoever he is. And finally, I got stuck on Tiresias Vision. Tiresias Vision. So, that also happened, but I was not in the, addiction of opium. I was completely, free from these things. So here Coleridge in a dream while he was under the influence of opium is true. However, there has been some disagreement over the claim that Coleridge was interrupted after 54 lines. Means he was writing this poem, but after 54 lines he stopped and he tells the reason what it is. उनका कहना था कि पर्सन फ्रॉम पोरलॉक ने आकर के उनके इस पोयम के प्रोजेक्ट को क्या कर दिया, फेल कर दिया, उसे नॉक कर दिया और पूरा एक आइडिया जो था वो वैनिश हो गया। अब ये कितना सही है कितना गलत है, दैट इज नॉट क्लियर, बट इट इज क्लियर एंड इट इज ट्रू दैट पोएम वाज नॉट कंप्लीटेड. It is just 54 line poem and is unfinished. While he was writing the poem, supposedly as he quickly recalled the visions of his opium induced dream in those first waking moments, means the idea of the poem was vanished. So critical works, the phrases fancy and imagination and willing suspension of disbelief are by Coleridge in his book Biographia, Literaria. So what these are, I am going to tell you. First of all, we am going to talk about fancy and imagination. Fancy and imagination. First of all, fancy. फैंसी के बारे में एस सी कॉलरिज ने कहा कि क्या है, ये एक ऐसी जो है इमेजिनेशन का टाइप होता है, एक ऐसी थिंकिंग का टाइप होता है जहां पर कुछ भी क्रिएटिव नहीं होता है. देयर इज नथिंग क्रिएटिव इन फैंसी. Nothing creative in fancy. There's a professor in our department. There was, we can say, now he's no more, and I'm not going to tell his name. He has written a poem. आए आए साए साए धाए धाए भाए भाए, अब हम कहां जाएं. And if we put these poems on the parameters of St. Coleridge, then it doesn't, fulfill the criteria of imagination. It had just fancy. There are many, writers, there are many poets in Hindi literature who have, imagination. For example, if we talk about Ramdhari Singh Dinkar and his famous poem Rasmi Rathi, if we talk about Maithili Saran Gupta and some other authors, I didn't remember at this time that, तो वहां पर क्या होता है, हमें उनकी पोएम्स में इमेजिनेशन मिलती है, कल्पनाओं से भरी. फैंसी क्या है, इट हैज दैट्स वाई फिक्सिटीज एंड डेफिनिटीज. यानी क्या है, यहां पर सब कुछ फिक्स है और डेफिनिट है, निश्चितताएं हैं इसकी. इट हैज लिमिट्स, सीमाएं हैं इसकी. ये क्या होता है, फैंसी. एंड अबाउट इमेजिनेशन, अबाउट इमेजिनेशन उन्होंने कहा हुआ है कि क्या होता है, ये फैंसी से बढ़कर के होता है. फैंसी क्या होता है, हम एक जगह से उठा करके कंटेंट को दूसरी जगह रख देते हैं, लेकिन इमेजिनेशन में क्या होता है, यहां पर हम क्या करते हैं, यहां पर हम कुछ नया क्रिएट करते हैं. इट, उसके बारे में उन्होंने कहा है, इट डिसॉल्व्स, डिसॉल्व्स, डिफ्यूजेस एंड डिसिपेट्स. 3 वर्ड्स हैं. It dissolves, diffuses and dissipates in order to recreate. In order to recreate. यानी क्या करती चीजों को, dissolve, diffuses and dissipates in order to recreate. ये होती है imagination. और इसके बारे में भी उन्होंने 2 बताया कि imagination भी कितने 2 तरीके की होती है. And the first imagination is the imagination which is possessed by common people. यानी आम इंसान जो होते हैं उनके पास में ये होती है, PEOPLE. And the second one is the imagination which is possessed by artistic personalities. Artistic personalities, scientists, poets, these are the person who have secondary imagination. So fancy, imagination और कौन सा आपका प्राइमरी और सेकेंडरी इमेजिनेशन. तो ये हो गया इसका. नाउ वी कम टू विलिंग सस्पेंशन ऑफ डिसबिलीफ. विलिंग सस्पेंशन ऑफ डिसबिलीफ इज अ काइंड ऑफ फिनोमेना वेयर what it is, willing suspension of disbelief, where you willingly suspend of disbelief. एग्जाम्पल के तौर पर मैं मानता हूं कि भूत नहीं होते हैं. हमेशा हम सब कहते हैं कि भूत नहीं होते हैं, ये महज एक अफवाह बात है. बट whenever you are trying, when we are going to see some movie that is haunted. Suppose you are seeing Annabelle, you are seeing Nun, you are seeing some other movies or any serial. When we were small, then we used to see आप बीती, दहशत, विक्रांता, अक्कड़ बक्कड़ बम्बे, वो विकराल और गबराल, ऐसे ऐसे सीरियल होते भूत वाले. तो उस समय आप क्या होते हैं, भले ही आप जानते हैं दैट नो दिस घोस्ट डजंट एग्जिस्ट, but at that time you willingly suspend, means ghost doesn't exist, this is your disbelief. आप नहीं मानते घोस्ट एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, लेकिन आप क्या करते हैं उस समय जब आप उस चीज को देख रहे हैं, तो आप क्या करते हैं, आप जानबूझ करके अपने उस, ठीक है, डिसबिलीफ को सस्पेंड कर देते हैं. एंड with the writer or with the movie maker you enter in his word, in his destined word, in his created word. आप भूतों की दुनिया में चले जाते हैं और आप उस पर यकीन करना भी शुरू कर देते हैं. तो that is willing suspension of disbelief. And why he coined this phrase? Because he had to defend his poem. Willing suspension of disbelief was the theory due to which he could defended his poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, because people of England at that time, rejected this poem. They said, what kind of rubbish you are talking about here? Ghosts don't exist. And you are writing about ghosts. You are writing about that ghosts are, carrying your ship. Bullshit. Rubbish. But St. Coleridge proved his genius. He had to defend his theory, and ultimately he wrote Biographia Literaria. And he told that what I am saying is related to willing suspension of disbelief. Whatever claim you do, that you don't consider, you don't think that ghost exists or not, you don't think that supernatural exists or not, but when I would have devised the plan, when any person who is writing or anyone who is making the movie has devised the plan that he is going to take you in his created world, then you will go. You have to go. And this is willing suspension of disbelief. Your rationality and wit don't work there. It is just your heart, and your heart says, भाग लो बेटा, बहुत यहाँ पे है लफड़ा, भूत होते हैं, भूत बीड़ी मांग लेता है कभी कभी, समझ लीजिए, तो ऐसे होता है. आइए सुनाओ. यस, जॉन कीट्स, person whose name is written on water, and he is my favorite poet. Favorite poet, why? Because in a very short span of life, he just lived 1795, birth year 1821, 26 years age. Even he was younger than me. And in such a small age, he contributed so much to literature. When Fanny Brown, his beloved, published his letters, Keats's criticism in his letters, and when she published those letters, then the idea was known to everyone that Keats always thought about poetry. Poetry for John Keats was what? There was another definition of poetry, and what it was, according to John Keats, he has said, what he has said, if poetry, remember the lines, if poetry doesn't come naturally as leaves to the trees, it is better it should not come. अगर पोएट्री नेचुरली नहीं आती है, जबरदस्ती के पोएट नहीं बनना चाहिए कभी भी। कीट्स का कहना है कि अगर आपको क्या हुआ है, जबरदस्ती आप पोएम्स लिख रहे हैं, आज ऐसे मिल जाते हैं राइटर जबरदस्ती की पोएम लिख रहे हैं, ऐसे ही पोएटास्टर इनको आप कह सकते हैं, श्रेणी में रख सकते हैं। जिसी को देखिए वही पोएट बना जा रहा है, फर्जी का ही। और कीट्स का कहना था कि अगर ऐसा है, अगर पोएट्री आपको नेचुरली नहीं आती है, आप आए आए साए साए धाए धाए भाए 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 करेंगे, तो इससे अच्छा है कि पोएट्री आप लिखे ही ना। पोएट्री कैसे आनी चाहिए? पोएट्री ऐसे आनी चाहिए जैसे क्या होता है, पेड़ों में पत्तियां स्वतः आ जाती हैं, उसी तरीके से आपके माइंड में ये आइडियाज भी आ जाने चाहिए। एंड दिस वाज द पर्सन whose name was written on water. These are the lines that has been inscribed on his gravestone. And yes, that was the life of Keats also. He suffered from tuberculosis and he died in another country. Why? Because he didn't want, that his beloved Fanny Brown or any other person who is his friend or relative must be affected from that disease, because it was at that time such a horror disease that it was confirmed that the person who is suffering from this will die. John Keats, famous for his ballads, famous for his poems, Ode to a Nightingale, famous for his odes. Basically he is famous for his odes, and he has written one ballad, and that is the name of the ballad is La Belle Dame Sans Mercy. So here we see Keats was not only the last but also the most perfect. You are seeing the adjectives, most perfect of the romanticists, because in a very short span of time, in 26 years, he firmed his position in romantic literature. Wordsworth was alive till 80 years, but Keats only 20 years. He did a lot of things in such a span of time, such a small span of time. If he would be alive similar to Wordsworth, then what would have happened? Imagine it. John Keats, Ode on a Grecian Nun. Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore you soft pipes play on. Beauty is truth, truth beauty. सत्य ही सुंदर है, सुंदर ही सत्य है। ऐसी ऐसी पोएम्स को लिखना, ऐसे ऐसे वर्ड्स को लिखना, लाइन्स को। And he was a sensuous poet. I am forgetting the fact to tell you that why Keats is famous. Keats is famous for his sensuous poetry. What is sensuousness? Sensuousness means in his poems we get all kind of sense perception. जो हमारी इमेजरीज होती हैं, जिसे हम वर्ड पिक्चर बोलते हैं। इमेजरी का मतलब वर्ड पिक्चर कि ऑथर क्या कर रहा है, वो आपको ऐसी सी वहां पे पिक्चर्स देखा आंखों की देखने के लिए, विजुअल इमेजरी, कानों से सुनने के लिए ऑडिटरी इमेजरी, और नाक से सूंघने के लिए ऑल्फैक्टरी इमेजरी, टेस्ट करने के लिए गस्टेटरी इमेजरी, और टच करने के लिए टैक्टाइल इमेजरी, इमेज ऑफ टच। और ये सारी चीजें आपको जॉन कीट्स की पोयम में मिलती हैं। अब आगे देखिए, he began writing poetry as a teenager. बहुत छोटे थे तब से पोएट्री को लिखना शुरू किया। and this first volume of poems was published in 1817. 1817 में पब्लिश होता है। When he was 24, जब 24 साल के थे, he met and fell in love with Fanny Brown. फैनी ब्राउन से क्या हुआ, इनके जो है प्यार हुआ। She rejected his love proposal. उन्होंने इनके लव प्रपोजल को ठुकराया। As he contracted tuberculosis, क्योंकि वो ट्यूबरकुलोसिस की गिरफ्त में आ चुके थे। But finally, when he died, she realized her mistake and published her, his collection of poetry and his criticism that was in letters. So here Keats died of this disease when he was only 26. 26 साल की उम्र में ही डेथ हो गई। It was his desire, उनकी इच्छा थी, that his headstone of his grave, कि उनकी कब्र का जो हेडस्टोन है ठीक है, टू बी मार्क्ड विद द इंस्क्रिप्शन, वहां पे लिखा होना चाहिए हियर लाइज वन, यहां पर वो पड़ा है हुज नेम वाज रिटन इन वाटर, जिसका नाम पानी में लिखा था। हिज वेल नोन वर्क्स आर, कौन कौन से वर्क्स हैं? एंडेमियन, अ थिंग ऑफ ब्यूटी इज जॉय फॉरएवर, इसाबेला 1818, लामिया 1819, हाइपेरियन इट इज एन एपिक, द ईव ऑफ सेंट एग्नेस, एंड द मोस्ट फेमस बैलेड इज ला बेल डैम सेंस मर्सी, यू नो। एंड हिज ग्रेट ओड्स आर, ओड कौन कौन से हैं? टू अ ग्रेसियन अर्न, आई विल टीच यू ऑल पोएम्स, डोंट वरी। To a nightingale, ode to a nightingale, to autumn, ode to autumn, to psyche, and to melancholy. Keats is well known as the originator of the idea of negative capability. And the word negative capability. What is negative capability? He coined his word negative capability for William Shakespeare. Negative capability किसके लिए? विलियम शेक्सपियर के लिए। और क्यों? क्योंकि इनका यह मानना था निगेटिव कैपेबिलिटी में निगेटिव से मतलब कुछ भी नहीं है। ये समझिए, ये निगेट से बना हुआ है। निगेट का मतलब क्या है? जब आप अपनी पर्सनालिटी को जीरो मान लेते हैं। मींस शेक्सपियर वाज अ क्रिश्चियन बट ही रॉट अबाउट द सफरिंग्स ऑफ जूज इन हिज फेमस प्ले द मर्चेंट ऑफ वेनिस। क्या होता है इस सिचुएशन में? जब आपके पास निगेटिव कैपेबिलिटी होती है तो आप अपनी कास्ट, अपने रिलीजन, अपनी आप एथनिसिटी, अपनी नेशनैलिटी, सबसे आप अलग हो जाते हैं। आप अपने आप को जीरो मान लेते हैं कि आप कुछ है ही नहीं अब आपका, अब आपका कुछ रहा ही नहीं। विलियम शेक्सपियर वॉज अ क्रिश्चियन बट ही रॉट अबाउट द सफरिंग्स ऑफ जूज इन हिज फेमस प्ले द मर्चेंट ऑफ वेनिस। When Portia asks Shylock that what you are going to do with such, small amount of flesh, Shylock replies, and his reply, was the reply of entire Jewish community. He said that to bait fish withal, if it feeds nothing, it will feed my revenge. If you tickle us, do we not laugh? कहता है मछली पकड़ूंगा इससे, इस मांस से, अगर इसे मछली भी नहीं खाएगी तो मेरा बदला खाएगा इससे। तुम बुद्धि लगाओगे तो हमें हंसी नहीं आएगी, हम भूखे होते हैं, हमें भूख नहीं लगती, हम भी तो इंसान हैं। एंड यू स्पिट ऑन अस, थूकते हो हमारे ऊपर। इज इट जस्टिस? नो, इट इज नॉट। सो विलियम शेक्सपियर रॉट अबाउट साइलॉग, विलियम शेक्सपियर रॉट अबाउट ओथेलो हु वाज अ मूर, मूर, सब ब्लैक पर्सन। इसलिए शेक्सपियर है। और कीट्स ने क्या किया? इनके लिए निगेटिव कैपेबिलिटी वर्ड का इस्तेमाल किया। वर्ड्सवर्थ के लिए भी इन्होंने इस्तेमाल किया किस चीज को? इगोटिस्टिकल सबलाइम। क्या है मैं आपको बताऊंगा अभी। और क्या है अब इसके बारे में बताते हैं। विच इज द एबिलिटी ऑफ राइटर टू निगेट हिमसेल्फ, कि अपनी पर्सनालिटी को निगेट कर ले, ऑफ ऑल पर्सनल कॉन्सेप्ट्स, यानी सारे व्यक्तिगत विचारों से, एंड प्रेजुडिसेस, और पूर्वाग्रहों से, enabling him to fully identify with the object he contemplates, यानी जिसके बारे में आप लिख रहे हैं आप वही बन जाएंगे। ऐसा लगता है कि शेक्सपियर रहा ही नहीं, अब खुद ही क्या बोल रहा है? जू बोल रहा है, साइलॉग बोल रहा है, शेक्सपियर रहा ही नहीं, ओथेलो बोल रहा है। ये है उसकी क्वालिटी। His romantic thoughts are best expressed in his odes, यानी इनके जो भी के आइडियाज हैं वो कहां पर? इनके ओड्स में हैं। which portray the conflict between ideal and real, वास्तविक और कैसा? ideal, others, reason and imagination, pain and pleasure, permanent and transitory, life and art। इन सब के बीच का जो कॉन्ट्रास्ट है वो हमें दिखाई पड़ता है किसमें? इनके ओड्स में। he was a poet of sensuality, इसको याद रखिएगा। कैसे पोएट हैं sensuality के? fully aware, fully aware of the sights, sound and smells of the world around him, owing to the growing interest of Keats in ancient Greek Hellenism. P.B. Shelley expressed his opinion about him. P.B. Shelley ने अपनी opinion को express किया that Keats was a Greek, क्योंकि ये ग्रीक के बारे में, or to psyche, melancholy, even his famous ode on a Grecian urn. The word Grecian stands itself for Greek. तो Keats was a Greek, ऐसा पीबी सेली ने इनको लिए कहा हुआ है। और देखिए, कीट्स ऑफन कोटेड लाइंस, अ थिंग ऑफ ब्यूटी इज अ जॉय फॉर एवर, कहां पे है? ओड ऑन अ ग्रेसियन अर्न में है, सॉरी ये एंडेमियन की लाइन है, पहली लाइन। और कौन सा है? ब्यूटी इज ट्रुथ, ट्रुथ ब्यूटी दैट इज ऑल यू नो ऑन द अर्थ एंड यू नीड टू ओ। क्या है कि ब्यूटी सुंदर ही सत्य है और सत्य ही सुंदर है, यही है दुनिया में, पृथ्वी पर, जिसको आपको जानना चाहिए। हर्ड मेलोडीज आर स्वीट बट दोज अनहर्ड आर स्वीटर, जिनको हम सुन लेते हैं तराने वो तो अच्छे ही होते हैं, लेकिन जो बातें आप दिल से सुनते हैं, दिल की जुबान से, समझ रहे हैं, दिल के कानों से, वो बातें बहुत बेहतरीन होती हैं। उनको कभी सुन करके देखिए, अनकही बातों को, वो और भी ज्यादा प्यार भरी होती हैं कीट्स के हिसाब से। ब्राइट स्टार वुड आई वाज स्टेडफास्ट एज दाउ आर्ट, आर्ट मींस आर, ब्राइट स्टार तुम काश, ठीक है, ऐसे होते जैसा मैं इमेजिन कर रहा हूं। सीजन ऑफ मिस्ट एंड मेलो फ्रूटफुलनेस, दिस लाइन इज ऑफ हिज फेमस ओड Ode to Autumn, AUTUMN, Ode to Autumn, and the poetry of earth is never dead. These are his famous lines. Keats, about criticism, I have told you the definition of his poetry. And second, he has used the word negative capability for negative capability for Shakespeare. For Wordsworth, he has used egotistical sublime, egotistical sublime, इसके लिए, वर्ड्सवर्थ के लिए। और खुद के लिए वो क्या कहता है अपने आप को? कैमेलियन पोएट, यहां पे लिख रहा हूं मैं, कैमेलियन मतलब गिरगिट, कैमेलियन पोएट, जहां पर भी रहेंगे उसी का रुख अख्तियार कर लेंगे। ये खुद के लिए निगेटिव कैपेबिलिटी, गोटिस्टिकल सब्लाइम, और लास्ट में क्या है? कैमेलियन पोएट। सो इट वाज ऑल फॉर टुडे फॉर एस.टी. Coleridge and John Keats. In my next lecture, I will talk to you about some other authors or poets of romantic age, and I will tell you about their biography, about their criticism, and about their poetry or any other genre writing. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Have a good day.